The following is a Barrett Sports Media production. Every sports media star has a story. From the highs...
We are number one. We just grabbed every key demographic.
To the lows.
You're fired!
The path to success is always different. To help you learn more about the industry's top broadcasters, Barrett Sports Media brings you the Sports Talkers Podcast. Now, here's your host, Stephen Strom.
Episode 28, Sports Talkers Podcast, BarrettSportsMedia.com. Stephen Strom here. Great to have you in. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you may be listening. We've got a special guest. It is Joy Taylor of FS1. She's currently the co-host of Speak with LaShawn McCoy and Emmanuel Acho. She was the anchor on The Herd, the moderator on Skip and Shannon. She started down here in Miami at $7.90 The Ticket. She's done a little bit of everything and really enjoyed our conversation about her childhood, when she got into broadcasting, graduated down, if we have Miami people listening or Florida people listening, Barry University on Miami shores, so really cool connection there. And we talk about a plethora of things. The Skip and Shannon show that started at 6 a.m., her routine, that's 3 a.m., in Pacific time, what her routine was like, and a very funny story that her and Skip had. One of the first days they started working, Joy Taylor had a couple of tweets that she had sent out before knowing Skip Bayless. Remember, Spurs, Heat, she was down here doing local radio, so that's very interesting story that she shares on the podcast about that specific incident. We also get a ton of great broadcast advice from Joy. She's a pleasure. Very excited to share that with you. Without further ado, let's get to Joy Taylor. But hold on, really quick. Rate, subscribe, and review Sports Talkers Podcast on Apple Podcasts. Of course, we're everywhere. Spotify, Google. JB takes care of us. All right, now we can get to Joy Taylor. Here she is, everybody. Give us a sense of your childhood. I knew you were born in Pittsburgh, but you got down here to Miami. Talk a little bit about that and then your interest into sports broadcasting.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I lived there until I was 18 years old. I played a bunch of sports growing up, soccer, track, volleyball, and basketball. And I was recruited to play soccer and run track in college. And I ended up running track my freshman year on scholarship in Pennsylvania. And if you know anything about Pittsburgh, it is a very sports-heavy town, and everyone there is assigned their allegiances at birth. So I grew up around very intense sports fans, both women and men, and obviously played sports myself and watched, a lot of football growing up. I graduated from Barry University in Miami, which was a great school for me because I went for broadcast journalism. I grew up obviously with a very heavy interest in sports, but I wanted to be Michael Jordan. And, it took a little time for that to settle in. Yeah. That was not going to be my path. I always had an interest in covering sports and talking about sports. And like I said, Pittsburgh is just a place where people have conversations about sports everywhere you go. Mm-hmm. And then so I decided to go for broadcast journalism at Barry, and that was. So
you transferred your freshman year in.
Yeah.
So give me that process real quick. When did you decide?
Yeah. So I transferred after my junior year, before my junior year to Barry. So I went 2 years to Barry University, and when I came in, I went sort of directly into the program, so the broadcasting program there, because I had already finished my associates and all of that. And the broadcast department there is very small and very intimate, but very well equipped. So I learned, how to use a prompter, how to edit, how to do a radio show, how to write for a news story, how to do reporting, how to use the camera, how to produce a television show. So I got a really well-rounded education on the technical side as well as the production side at Barry. And I also worked at the radio station at Barry, the student station, as a manager. And I had my own show there as well. Not to the level that I've been working on now, although I thought very highly of it at the time. But it was a great start. It was really, I liked being able to make mistakes at that level. And as you know, reps are super important, and you get better every time you do something, particularly in this business. So being able to start in a space where there's not so much pressure and were very helpful for me.
What did you feel like you had that maybe others didn't, that gave you the confidence that I can break into this?
I think I think of my personality. I've always wanted to be a personality driven. I've always wanted to have a personality driven career, I guess you should say. So I've always admired Howard Stern, Oprah, people who really built their empires off of being themselves and being authentic. And that's what drew their audiences to them. I've never been a news person. I never wanted to be a reporter.
It's very robotic being an anchor, and that's no disrespect to anyone, but that's very
I think it's a big responsibility to be a reporter, to be an anchor in that space, because you don't get to put your opinion on things. You are expected to be unbiased, although we've sort of gotten into a space now where it's very hard to find unbiased reporting and hosting. But I still do think real journalists are the backbone of our democracy and a functioning society. And that spills over to sports as well. So I've never wanted to be in that space. I always wanted to react to the news and give my opinion, which is part of the reason why I started my career in radio, because I wanted to talk. And I didn't always have the confidence that I was going to be able to do it, but I always wanted to lean into my personality and be an authentic person, in my career. And when you're just yourself, then it feels more comfortable to be able to do.
So you graduate from Barry, you end up at 790 The Ticket. You're doing a bunch of different things there. You're doing some production stuff. And I think, again, this is important that everyone learns that you don't just get up and graduate and you're on air. You do the behind the scenes stuff that really prepares you for where you're at. I mean, I think you probably will look back on all the things that you've done and said, all of this has helped me to where I'm at today. So tell me, I guess, from your local days at 790, when you got that call from Fox, or just kind of give us that story to that catapulted you there.
Yeah. So after a few years at 790, I was coming up on my contract with 790 and we were negotiating, and I had signed with an agent and gotten an audition with FS1. At the time, FS1 was a very different rendition of a network than it is now. Skip was not there yet. Colin was there. Colin was
he was a pioneer to lead that. Yeah.
He was the first one that went, and his show was really the cornerstone of the network. I mean, they had torn everything else down that they had originally launched with, and we're getting away from more of the newsy shows and leaning into full opinion and a full opinion lineup. They were interviewing a bunch of different people, pretty much anyone who was available around the country. So I came in for an audition, did really well, and was brought back for another one. And then we, just started talking, and they wanted to bring me out. And again, at the time, Nick Wright and I were hired at the same time at FS1, but there were no shows. It was just the herd. So I came out to Los Angeles and did not have anything to do. We were just, the two of us were just kind of floating around LA. I'm used to doing a 4-hour daily show. Nick was used to doing a daily radio show. That's a big haul. So it was going from a pretty big, schedule in Miami to LA at FS1.
Right.
But all of that happened before Skip and Shannon even committed to coming.
So you end up being the moderator, and I was listening to one of your interviews, and there's a story you tell that the first thing that you said to Skip was, I guess, a tweet. And this is so prominent, especially for people that are younger, that are, on social media. What was the tweet, and why did you feel like it was important to just be like, hey, I was I didn't mean this, or whatever it may be?
Skip and I had already met many times before this happened. And, we're discussing the show and all of those things. And I want to say that it was announced that I was going to be the moderator. I can't remember the timeline on it, but some previous tweets of mine had come out from when I was at 790. And keep in mind, Skip Bayless is a San Antonio fan.
Yep, anti-LeBron.
And anti-LeBron. And the Miami Heat had LeBron and matched up against San Antonio in some pretty big games. So he, like most of us in the national space, became, public enemy number one to whatever local team he was going against, which happened to be the Miami Heat. I think I said he was a clown or was playing a character or something.
That's not bad.
It's pretty bad. It wasn't great. But I said it. So I had a first face-to-face conversation with him and apologized and said, obviously this was tweeted before I knew you and before I was at Fox. And, I have a lot of respect for you now. And, I fully understand if you don't want to work with me anymore. Like that's, I would understand that, but I'm going to apologize and whatever. And he was like, I totally understand. I did local, radio in my career as well. Like that's part of the deal is that you create, characters that get the fans involved. And
wow.
Like, I get it. Like, I know what you did for a living. He was very kind about it. And it was a very good lesson for me. And I do think it is important to keep in mind, now that I'm on Speak a lot, I don't pay attention to social media. Not to social media, I should say, I don't read Twitter.
You can't.
And, I'm not paying attention to what, show has made me a character this week or whatever. Like, it's my job to give my opinion. It's not my job to make every fan base feel good. And, I don't like to upset anybody. That's not my goal. But
you're in the opinion business.
I think.
Yep,
right.
Yep,
And if you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to like what I say. But, I do think in the business, it can come back on you, So, and I'm, I get it also. So I pay that grace forward that was given to me. But it is, it is a note.
You're from the East Coast. So when I saw this was a 6 a.m. show. Okay. So you're up. I don't know what I was just like, what was this woman's routine? Like, how did you can you give us a Spark Notes version of what time you went to bed and just how did you do this?
So I blacked out for 2 years is basically what it was. No, I had done mornings for most of my career. This is really, I started in the afternoons. My very first job part-time at WQAM in Miami was on the afternoon show. I was the part-time producer for the afternoon show. That was my first paid job in the business. So from that time until now, I've worked mornings. But this type of morning, like you're mentioning with Undisputed, is a different kind. It's really not the morning. It's really the middle of the night. So I would get up at 3:20 in the morning, be at the studio by 4 for the production meeting, do the production meeting from, 4 to 4:20, 4:15, 4:30, depending on how long the meeting went. They're usually pretty short because the show is basically stacked the night before. Nothing really happens between, 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless something happens in a late basketball game. But we pretty much know what we're doing before we go to sleep. But yeah, I would wake up 3:20, go to the meeting, go to hair and makeup, be on set by 6:15.
Coffee girl or no?
Yes, but I've never wanted to be addicted to coffee.
You want to rely on it. That's fair.
Not addicted. Like, I don't have an addictive personality, but rely on it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So I would always have coffee. I would have coffee in hair and makeup, and then I would have one on set. But I didn't want to just constantly be drinking coffee all day. Also, when I would leave work, I want to go back to sleep. So I would go home, take a long nap, 2 hours, whatever, 2-3 hours, get up, go work out, run errands, whatever, watch whatever I need to watch for sports that day and go back to sleep. So during the week, I was really a machine, and I would not drink. I would not drink anything during the week, not a glass of wine, nothing from Sunday afternoon to Friday, after the show was just a no alcohol zone. Cause body just can't process it.
No.
You don't have enough time. And there's no option, particularly on that show, especially on the version of that show that we were doing, which was, we had a steady cam walking around the whole set. We had 3 or 4 guests every day in person. We would be on the road for a lot of the shows. It was just, you had to be on. There's just no other version. So from Friday, 9 a.m. to Sunday morning, it was go time. But in between that, it was no social life, no going out, no dinners, nothing. It just, you have to have a really strict routine, which I am a routine person. So I didn't mind that part of it.
Yeah.
I still have a pretty, not strict, but I have a pretty good routine when it comes to work. I like to eliminate decisions every day that don't require creativity.
Right. That doesn't make us control freaks. That makes us disciplined.
it's discipline, but it's, it's like the Steve Jobs model, don't waste time and energy on decisions that really just don't matter. I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. I eat the same thing for lunch every day. I come in at the same time. I try to park in the same parking spot. I generally just wear, sweatpants and a hoodie to work because I'm getting hair and makeup when I get here. Like, I try to work out at the same time. That type of stuff, to me, it lowers my anxiety, because I'm not like, oh my God, what time am I going to do this? And what time, where do I go for here? You do the same thing every day during the week. We do a daily show. So why add extra decisions? So that really, and it helps you for preparation, because you're not spending your time and energy on things that are outside of the show. So yeah, it was a really great time. I mean, like I said, we traveled to a lot of different places because we had just launched the show. And it was, Skip's big entrance to FS1, and it was a big deal that he had left ESPN, and Shannon joining him on the show. So I'm glad I did it. I'm proud of that. That time that we had together, and it definitely prepared me for the next step. Everything I've done in my career has really prepared me. You kind of alluded to it earlier. You always feel confident. Young confidence is such a beautiful thing. I wish I could cipher off some of the confidence that I had when I was 18. It's because I didn't know any better, but you always feel like you're ready until you get in this position. So use everything that you're doing to prepare yourself for the next step, so that when you do get the opportunity, you are ready. Right. I use things that I learned in my internships when I was in college in the shows that I do every day. I use the writing skills that I learned at school. Every day I have to write. Every day I have to research. Every day I have to, help with show rundown. And everything that I've done has given me experiences that help me be good at what I'm doing now. So it's a balance of knowing when to go for the next step and enjoying the place you are in your career at the moment.
Absolutely. That's fantastic advice. And that's the story on a lot of these people that we have on the podcast. And I think there's sometimes this notion that you just graduate and you're on air, or some of these people that are in these positions just, got there. It's not the case. Now, so everyone has a different journey. I think that's been the theme on this as well. But Joy, the last thing I'm going to ask you, you've been around so many different talents, and I know it's tough for me to say, just narrow it down to one. But when you think about someone that either influenced you or guided you, who's that person that comes to mind for you?
Dan Le Batard was huge for me. He really helped me in the early stages of my career, giving me great advice and some affirmation that I was on the right track and doing the right things. And throughout my career, he's always been kind enough to pick up the phone whenever I really need some shake up advice. So he's been great for me. Dan has, and from the very beginning, very early stages when I was starting out in my career in Miami. Zaslow obviously is still a very good friend of mine. We talk often. Jason Jackson. I don't want to leave anybody out now that I'm listening to my Miami people. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of really great people around me. I mean, I started my career with Dan Cilio and Sid Rosenberg, and they were very kind to me, gave me great opportunities. Yeah, I mean, and all the whole Heat staff, I mean, everyone there, Crotty, Eric Reed, have all been great for me. So, and I feel really blessed to have been able to start my career in Miami. It's a huge market. And the one thing that I always try to advise young people in the business on, because I don't like the word lucky, but I knew what I wanted to do. And so everyone that I worked with, everyone that I met, everyone that I asked to mentor me or that I asked for advice knew exactly what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And that's really helpful when you're trying to break into the business, when you're reaching out to people, when you're asking for internships, when you're asking people to mentor you, is that you know what you want to do, because this is a vast business and it's only growing. If you know what you want to do, it's so much easier for people to point you in the right direction. It just helps you streamline your path. And it really, when people think, when opportunities come up or a position opens and someone's like, hey, do you know somebody who wants to get into this part of the business? Like, we have an entry level job. I do know someone who wants to be a beat writer for a team. But like, I can't think of that person if you don't know what you want to do. And people respect that. And because everyone in the business has had to deal with that at some point, there is a tendency to reach back and to reach out and help people who are coming up in the business as well.
Huge shout out to Joy Taylor for joining us today. She has an insane schedule, so we really appreciate her carving out time. At Joy Taylor Talks on Twitter and Instagram. Always cool to see the growth of a certain individual, with her skipping Shannon, the Herd, to now the co-host of Speak, having her own thing, man. That's really cool to see the growth of Joy Taylor, and we appreciate the time as always. Make sure to rate, subscribe, and review Sports Talkers Podcast. And we also have other pods on BearSportsMedia.com that you can check out. We always have you covered with articles as well as far as the sports media world is concerned. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will talk to you next Thursday right here on the Sports Talkers Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Talkers Podcast with Stephen Strom. A reminder that each episode can be found on iTunes, Spotify, and most podcasting platforms. To stay up to date on future episodes, visit VerrettSportsMedia.com.